Welcome to the Awakened Sober Podcast. It's a podcast about life and recovery through Christ. Thank you all for joining us this week. We're glad you guys are here. For those of you guys who have returned, welcome back. All our newcomers, so glad you're here.
Without a doubt.
This week we got a special guest. We're doing another sweet little interview and that. But before we get started, let's interview the people here. Shane, how was your day, man? How was your week been, brother?
My week has been full of, I don't want to call it chaos, but dang, a pain in the butt from last week's podcast. We had a broken mic. Your sound was horrible. Steve's camera kept cutting off on him. So it's just been a week of, let me fix this so I could get something out. And it's been a pain in the butt. So everything else fell behind because of it. But other than that, it's a beautiful week.
There you go.
Steve, how about you?
How was my week? Something in my throat, didn't want to clear the mic. I had a pretty good week. I got a chance to reconnect with an old friend. Had a chance to, enjoy a few days off during the week, and of course, always work on the weekends. I'm happy. I'm very happy right now.
Wow.
Got some other stuff that I'm dealing with that are not so happy, but I'm working on it. How are you doing, Derek?
I'm doing just fine. You know me. Actually, this last week,
Fine. I think we all know what that means.
You know what? Mind your business. No, anyway, this week I've actually really seen my higher power at work. Things have come up that I was not expecting. As much as I wanted to do things my way, he came up was like, not gonna happen. You got to do it like this. So,
look, man, we're allowed to say it. What is your higher power?
Jesus Christ.
All right.
My higher power.
Look, don't tiptoe around.
No.
Speak it, my brother. I mean, if it's there, it's there. Those that don't believe, we sit on this couch and we let them speak what they believe in and what they don't believe in.
No, yes. My higher power is the Lord Jesus Christ, and he has been at work this last week and really making me open my eyes to what he has planned, not what I have planned.
That is.
So that's what
that's
that was
the way
about.
It usually happens.
It is. Yeah.
Our way is not the good way. Our way got us here.
Yeah, right.
His way is getting us out of here. So,
but even on other things outside of just the recovery part of itself,
right.
It's like, all right, I'm going to do this. This is how I'm going to handle this situation I got going on. And then, no, that just totally backfired because I got a phone call that I did not expect to get. And it was like, all right, I was given something I wasn't expecting to receive. And it's like, all right, I got some work to do. I need to, all right, I got it.
We'll always have work to do. But I'm pretty excited about today. I mean, one, I love hearing stories. I love hearing testimonies. I love hearing redemption stories. And I'm guessing we have a pretty good one with us today. Coby, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, without a doubt. I think we're going to interview everybody that works at a treatment center. All the local treatment centers coming near you. We're going to come and get you.
Fast and Furious of recovery.
So
How about Fast and Furious?
So how are you doing?
I'm good. It's been a really busy week, but fulfilling.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, all the tasks that I kind of set for myself, I didn't think I'd get them all done. Somehow, at the end of the week, I did.
And then you had fun today.
I did. I was at Recovery Fest, and it was really good seeing everyone come together like that.
Yeah, you said something about live bands, which you lost me at, but a few food trucks, which that like perked up my ears.
Right?
Yeah, you had, 5 food trucks, and what was gold is they had a coffee truck, which that had the longest line at a sobriety event. Go figure, I don't know why.
Imagine that.
See, and I don't know why either, because I just don't do coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather do Mountain Dew or sweet tea.
There you
So
go.
if you had some really good sweet tea there, real sugar, no sweetener, give me some real sugar, sweet tea, lots of it to where the spoon almost stands up, I would have been okay. I would enjoy that.
Oh, yeah.
I'll have to make you some sweet tea. So
Yeah,
I mean,
to
that's-
eat my teeth.
That's Southern sweet tea.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know what I mean?
I'll take that as a challenge. I'll have to
I was
make
just
you
saying, my
some sweet
biggest
tea
joke
sometime.
is that when you're burning up in hell, they serving you unsweetened tea. That's what it's like.
That is so true.
That's un-American tea.
That's my drink though, is the unsweet tea.
Dude,
Really?
that's just gross, dude.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, I love sweet tea.
I
And
grew up on unsweet tea, so sweet tea just doesn't taste right to me.
really, no, the sugar's good.
Outside of the food trucks, though, what happened at this Recovery Fest? What was it
Well,
about?
well, it was different treatment centers were there, and they were representing, and then they also had like an art section where people that are in recovery submitted their art. So we had Paul from the aviary, and he got accepted where he submitted 4 pieces, and so they had like the arts and crafts, and then they kind of had places there that could show you different sober livings, treatment options, and all of that. So it was good.
Stevie, you got something for her?
What have I got?
Obviously, you have nothing.
Oh my goodness.
I got
So, Coby, we got you on there because we're gonna do an interview with you, man. We want to know a little bit about Coby. We want to know like where was you born? Where'd you grow up?
Okay, so I was born in Orange County, California, and let's see, born there, and then until about 6th grade, then we moved to New York. So, and then from New York, I moved back to California.
You couldn't have had anything more different.
What was it like going from one side of the country to the other side?
100% different. I was raised, in Orange County, California. We're talking, the Maui and Sons and all that. And then I was born with like super blonde hair. And then all of a sudden I go from California to New York. And then I wind up in Long Island, New York, where I go to Catholic school. I'm sent to Catholic school. And my last name is Wassman, very German, and I go to a Catholic school, and everybody's last name is Ippolito Accadino Bonsignore, and I did not fit in. And they played lacrosse.
That is funny.
Yeah.
So you had a bit of a spiritual upbringing.
Oh yeah. So my birth mom, that I wasn't raised by, she was actually Buddhist. And my dad sent me to Catholic school, and my stepmom, who raised me ever since I was 1 year old, she was a Baptist. So I had 3 different religions surrounding me as a child.
So was that confusing for you?
Very
Where did that leave you?
Very confused. So I was raised in a home where my stepmom came from Little Rock, Arkansas, and so she was raised Baptist. And then all of a sudden, because it was a good school, I was sent to St. Mary's. And when I got there, that was, with the Catholic religion. And then I was really confused as a little boy when I go visit my real mom. And she was sitting in front of what they call a gahunzen and doing gangyo and morning gangyo, evening gangyo. And it was so different than what I was raised with or what I knew. And so it seemed very foreign to me. So I didn't know what to latch on to.
And how old were you around that time?
Oh, God, it started happening since I was a little kid.
Right. That's what I was wondering. So when were you immersed in the 3 different religions or whatever you may?
You know what? To be fair, the Catholic school and doing all that kind of stuff didn't come into play for all 3, probably 7th grade. 7th grade.
Yeah. And we're pretty influenceable around that age.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, as a little kid, I would see my birth mom and go visit, and she would sit in front of this Gahunzen light incense, and she would chant, and do gangyo, and I had no idea what she was saying.
and I still wouldn't today.
No, I still don't today.
I'd be totally lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Gangilea ho ho mene hill.
Yes, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And so they would all harmonize in a big room full of people, and that kind of freaked me out as a little kid.
My dad knew.
I'm
Tina
kind of freaked
Turner.
out
It was
here at the moment.
We just learned something new about Derek.
Right.
my dad knew Tina Turner, and Tina Turner was very Buddhist, and she always did that chants before her shows and stuff.
So it's funny that you say that, because when I was a little kid, my mom brought me to a temple, and I got to meet Tina Turner and Herbie Hancock and Patrick Duffy. And there I was as a little kid watching Patrick Duffy on Dallas, and then he came up and said hello to me. And Tina Turner was a huge advocate of Buddhism.
Yes.
Very nice lady, by the way.
Herbie Hancock.
Yep.
I remember him. He
Right.
made some good beats,
He
man.
did.
And now we're getting into your music.
Yeah, he made some good beats back in the
Your
day.
face is lighting up over there, Shane.
Hey, what can I say? I like a little
I
music.
remember he handed me a piece of paper and he signed his autograph and all of that. And
So you got his Herbie Hancock.
I did get his Herbie Hancock.
Not as John Hancock.
Herbie
Good one there,
Hancock,
Derek. Way to go, buddy.
There
Way to
you
go.
Thank you very
But I
much.
had no idea as a little kid, like, who did I just meet?
So, we're still talking about it, but I mean, other things in your childhood that shaped you and
Oh, most definitely. So my dad married my dad was in the Marines, so he met my mom, and she already had a kid, but she wasn't married, and ended up conceiving me. And so my dad did the right thing at the time when he was in the Marines, and he married her. And I think by the time I was 1, they divorced. By the time I was 1.5, almost 2, he had met my stepmom. They had got married. So all of a sudden, at a very young age, I was in a household with my dad, who is totally different than me. Very tall German man. He's got the beard, just like Shane over here, and very intimidating. And my stepmom was from Little Rock, Arkansas, and sounded like Dolly Parton when she talked. She would always be like, "Hi, hon, how are you?" you know. And then I had a birth mom that then got married, and she was, ever since I could remember, an alcoholic. So I kind of went between both homes and primarily lived with my dad. And then when I was 6 years old, I was a pretty happy, spunky kid. And then they gave out the flu shot and swine flu vaccine at school. And I got it. And then I came home. And by the next day, I was sick. And it appeared that I had the flu. And throughout the day, I had this rabbit and called him Peter Cottontail. And every time I go to chase him that day, I kept falling. And it was kind of odd. And I was staying with my birth mom at the time for the summer. And about later that night, I was sitting at dinner, and I'll never forget it. They had served spaghetti, and it was me, my birth mom, my stepfather, Richard, and his 2 daughters. And as I was eating spaghetti, my head dropped, and I couldn't lift it. My stepfather wasn't a nice man, and he yelled at me and told me to stop fooling around, but I couldn't lift my head. So I kind of burst into tears, and I said, I can't. And they finally figured out something was wrong. So they rushed me to the Fraser Park Clinic where my mom lived, and got there, and the doctor and all that had no idea what was going on. So they called my father, who was in Orange County, and he drove out, met us there, and he said, "What's going on with my son?" And he said, "I have no idea. This is something I've never seen." So he said, "I think your son's probably going to have to go to Chalk Hospital in Orange County," which was far. And my dad arranged to have me life flighted there. And I went to Chalk Hospital. And by the next day, I was completely paralyzed, in a coma state, and on life support. And I stayed that way for quite a while. They had no idea what was happening. And apparently, there was a doctor from Germany that was out there doing a conference, and she was asked to come to Chalk Hospital and do a spinal tap. And they discovered that I had contracted Guillain-Barré, and they had never had a case of a child getting Guillain-Barré. I think the youngest person at that time was 32. It was very rare. And I had one of the worst cases on the books. And from there, I was on life support and all of that. And I believe I was in the hospital at that time for 17 months. So 17 months, my dad had arranged to have nurses and everything kind of move my hands and my legs so they didn't atrophy. And slowly over time, I think it was after 6 months, they were able to take the feeding tube out, and I came back slowly, but not a whole lot of movement. And then after that time period, I was then brought home. When I was brought home, I was completely paralyzed from kind of the neck down. And my dad, I'll still remember her name. Her name was Rennie, moved her into the house, and she was a physical therapist. And she put me in the pool every day. They told my family I would never walk again. I would never do any of that. So I did end up going back to school. And when I got to a period where I can kind of move my hands, and I was in a wheelchair. And as you can imagine, being in elementary school, um, completely handicapped and not, there was a period of time where they had to keep extra clothes because I didn't have control over my bladder or anything like that. So I definitely went through a lot of ridicule, a lot of teasing. Um, Slowly over time, I worked so hard every day with physical therapy to try to get my movement back. I wanted to be like every other kid. I remember my big thing was I wanted to be on a little league team. And I actually have the photo where my my dad's a lot of things. One thing he did do good is I wanted to be on the little league team, but there's not like a special team. So he had fought with the coach of the little league team to have me put in a giant stroller that I was strapped in, even though I couldn't walk. And the other kids would pitch and hit, but then they put a T ball, like a T thing for T ball set up, and they had someone push my stroller to the base. And then from my stroller, I would hit the ball off the tee, and someone would push me base to base. And I actually have the Little League of the Indians, where I'm this handicapped, completely atrophied legs with my baseball uniform, and all the other kids are standing up. But I was bound and determined to do what anybody else could do.
All right, so you mentioned something. What was the name of that again?
Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Guillain-Barré syndrome. And you said that the younger people usually don't get that. What is it exactly?
So when I got it, it's still very rare, but when I got it, it attacks the central nervous system. And back at that age, at 6, I was the first child to ever get it. And the youngest person on the books at that time was a 34-year-old male. And they usually, the ones that got it, did not have such a severe case, and I had it head to toe.
So what exactly is it?
So it attacks the central nervous system and completely shuts it down. Now, at the time, they didn't know how it was caused, but they now have discovered that it's a allergic reaction from the flu shot and swine flu vaccine. So
Mm.
I can never have the flu shot again. If I do, I'd be fully paralyzed and it would reactivate the Guillain-Barré.
Wow, I've never heard
Well,
of
I
that.
guess that's a reason not to get a flu shot.
Yeah. So, yeah. And now it's past the time when you can go after them for it. So, but they
Oh,
didn't find it till 20 years later what the root cause was.
Wow, that is.
so the statute of limitations was gone over, I guess.
I guess
You could
so.
say something like that.
I think what the doctors told my family, it's 1 in 10 million chance that somebody would ever get it.
So let's get into some of the addiction side of things. When was your first drink or first use? Because I don't know if it was drinking or drugs first. I mean, it's all drugs, but when was that first time for you?
It would have been 11. It was after a pretty traumatic event in my life. And my dad used to have his, somebody bought him a giant Cuddy Shark bottle that was huge and that it was on a swivel as a gift.
Hmm.
And I remember just seeing him drink, and I remember going through something, and I took the top off and poured a glass. It made me sick, but
But it's so funny how it can make you sick, but it don't keep you away.
no.
So you say you were going through something. Are
Yeah.
you safe to talk about
Sure.
what it was? Because obviously you're sharing that you used the alcohol as a coping mechanism
Sure.
for what you went through.
So, as I told you, being in the wheelchair and then going to a walker, I kind of stood out. I was teased a lot, right?
Mm.
And then there were certain characteristics about me that were different than other kids my age. And my dad hated that. He thought I was too feminine. He didn't like the way I talked, this, that, whatever. But he didn't explain to me why. I didn't even know why he was the way he was. But I remember I came home one day and some kids had called me some names, and I got pretty roughed up. And my stepmom, when she saw me, was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, are you okay?" And then I remember my dad came home and said, "You brought this on yourself. It's the way you walk, it's the way you talk, it's the way you act." And I remember hearing those words. So that stood out to me, right? I wasn't going to say what was happening to me at school or I would get in trouble. So when I was 11 years old, I was walking home from school and there was a Subway and a Baskin Robbins, and there was these two older Persian guys that worked at the Subway. They would always say hi. And anyways, one day I, walked by and they had said hello and invited me to come in. And the one guy said, "We have watermelon and all of that in back. Would you like some?" And I said, "Sure." And I walked back there. And those two men did something to me that you should never do to anyone and took my innocence. Um, I remember I cried. I remember how painful it was. And I remember being in shock. I do remember when I went to walk home, I tried to pretend what happened didn't happen. And then I remember when I walked through the door, my stepmom could see something was wrong. And I remember she said to me, "Sweetie, why do you have blood all over the back of your pants?" And I told her I fell. And she wanted to see, and I wouldn't let her see. And then I kind of went in the bathroom and I cried. And I remember hearing my dad's words, "You brought this on yourself." So I had no one to talk to. I didn't say anything. And I remember going for that Cuddy Shark because I remember seeing how it made the adults change and be different. Um, and then I think it was shortly after that, um, took a bunch of pills that were in my parents' medicine cabinet, didn't even know what I took. And that would have been the first time that I had ever attempted suicide. And they didn't know why. And I didn't speak of it for many years until probably years later it came out in family counseling. And my stepmom burst into tears because she knew something happened that day.
Mm.
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was your first attempt, you said.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you'll probably get into more later. You said you were 11?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember at 11 if I'd have known about taking pills for suicide and what I knew about that. And
You learn a lot from TV.
Let's just say, man, it seemed like back-to-back incidents on that point right there. I mean, I understand what happened to you was traumatic, but then
Mm-hmm.
to hear your father say what he had said, to me, the way I grew up, that would have been worse on me than the incident that happened itself. So, I mean, I could just only imagine how that really made you feel.
Well, I thought to myself, who am I going to tell? And I already couldn't explain what was done to me. And what am I going to? I just felt that I would be in trouble, even though as an 11-year-old child, uh, I didn't know what any of that was. Um, and just I didn't think I could handle being punished again. And I still didn't realize or understand why I was punished by these two men that seemed friendly. And I didn't even know what any of that stuff was. So, having your innocence taken and not being able to talk to anyone, that's hard, right?
Mhm.
So I was dealing with stuff at school. I was dealing with stuff with my dad at home. My only saving grace, I call her, she's gone now, but was my angel, was my stepmom, but I was too afraid to say to her because she would tell my dad. Because in my mind as a young kid, I thought I had done something to deserve it, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, that's one of the worst feelings in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Blaming yourself, all the shame, the guilt, and
Yeah.
I can relate to that.
so is that where your addiction grew from that moment?
I remember the relief that I felt like from drinking. Um, my addiction didn't grow until I was 15.
What happened at 15?
What didn't?
The good old years of 15.
So at 15 years old, I was about 14, 15. I remember, this will make sense to you or it won't, but I remember probably about 12 or 13. My dad, I'm his only, biological child. And I remember my dad making a couple jokes. One, all gay people and drug addicts should be put on the Golden Gate Bridge and shot. And he laughed at that.
Mm.
And then I remember at a dinner party, my dad, everything about who I was irritated my dad. And all these people sitting at the table, and he said some kind of comment. My stepmom goes, "Ernie, why are you so unkind?" And he said, "Well, he needs to realize that I don't love him or accept him, but I do have to take care of him." And so I was always seeking this approval and love from my dad. Now, I know now by going to therapy what it all kind of worked out to be. But when I was 14, 15, I went to my parents' health club, and I remember meeting this guy, John. He was probably 34, and he showed me kindness. And but now that I look back at it now, it's like, it's sick. But he told me he loved me and had a very inappropriate relationship with me. So he was kind of like the secret. I had this secret relationship with a guy that age. He used to show up at my swim meet, and my parents thought he had a kid on the swim team. And when I was 15, I didn't know what I was. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know if what had happened to me was I that way. And my dad went out of town. My stepmom went on a trip, and I used my dad's credit card, and I bought a ticket, and I had my brother's girlfriend take me to the airport, and I got on a plane from JFK to LAX, and I remember calling my alcoholic birth mom and saying I was going to come live with her. And I was pretty sure that I was gay, but I wasn't going to tell anyone. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew I couldn't handle it at home. And I hopped on the plane and I left. And I knew I'd be arriving in California and staying with my mom that was just actively using. And anyways, to kind of speed up, I got there, and because my dad made a lot of money and did really well, she was only wanting me there so she could get a big chunk of change to live on and support her habit. And I remember when I got there, I met somebody older as well, and he brought me up to LA. He's very wealthy. His name is Rick, and he owns Chabot and Pepe and GHQ, and he introduced me to all these people, and I remember him getting me alcohol and then me trying cocaine for the first time. And I remember when I did those lines, I instantly felt attractive. I felt I could do anything. I felt like my guard was down. Um, and at that moment, I was hooked because I wear prosthetics over each leg now to walk. And I remember when I did that cocaine, I could walk, I could go dancing for the first time, and I felt like the noise cut out and I felt free in some weird way.
Hopefully, somebody out there is not listening, going, "Well, I'm going to go do that now."
No, but you got to think. I was quiet and I was trapped and I didn't speak, and all of a sudden I did this, and it kind of took all that away and made me like not tear apart myself. Now I will tell you that like it was that first time. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does.
So never in my life, I'm 49 years old now, I always try to repeat what happened that first time that I did drugs. And it was always trying to chase that first high, but could never duplicate it. And as much as I tried to consume, I was never able to get that initial feeling back.
We never can,
Mm-mm.
and that's the bad thing. We'll spend most of our lives chasing something
yeah.
that can't ever happen again.
Yep.
Yeah, I call it that high point. There's that high point in our addiction that we get to that first time, and we never get back to it.
Right.
And we, as much as we chase it, we get below this line of normality
Mhm.
that we got to use just to get back to that line to even try to focus on getting
Right.
back to that point.
Yeah. And then if you think about it, all of a sudden I'm thrust into this world at 15 where I go to West Hollywood and I have now at the time I thought it was great, but you have all these men in their 30s that are successful. I'm 15. I probably look like I'm 12, 13. And they're all telling me how great I am and how much they love me and how accepted I am. And to feel unaccepted, unloved, and unwanted. And then all of a sudden being around all these people, I believed in that. And at 14, 15 years old, I was at a nightclub, where 6 nights a week and people showering me with stuff and treating me like I was great. I didn't realize that all I was fresh meat. And when I look at it now, anybody in their 30s with a 14, 15-year-old kid is disgusting. But to me,
There's a special place for them.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but at the time, I just thought, well, these people love me and I wasn't loved. So this is where I was meant to be. But boy, did I learn the hard way.
So, how long did that lifestyle last for you?
Gosh. Well, for the first time, it lasted for a year. I was actually, this is so crazy to me when I think about it. So I was there the night at the Viper Room when River Phoenix OD'd. I was around all those people because of Rick and all his connections and a lot of coke, a lot of drugs, drinking. And then I OD'd when I was 16 in front of a nightclub in West Hollywood. So it was weird to me. I was living this fast life. Went from this kid watching TV and then being at the Viper Room and Rage and Mickey's with Corey Haim, Corey Feldman, all these people. And I just thought I had arrived, and I consumed so much alcohol and so much coke. And then I OD'd it when I was 16. I was brought to the hospital and I ended up having a baggie of cocaine, and I was transported to the hospital. And then they found out I was a minor and that my health insurance and all that was through a company that my dad owned. He was contacted, so I had to go back to my dad. That lasted for 8, 9 months. And then I ran away again and went back to LA and kind of went back to that lifestyle.
So my question for you is: were you addicted to the drugs and alcohol, or was it the lifestyle? Because you shared like you weren't feeling that love at home from dad, which could be rough on any individual. But then you were saying all these other older guys were loving on you
I was addicted to it all.
to it
You
all.
know what I mean? I was addicted to it all. And then, I went back to LA, and then I was pursuing a career in doing makeup and all that, and started, doing internship with TV and film, and got to do like Roseanne and all that kind of stuff. But all the people that I was around lived the fast life, right? And So I needed to be in the center of it all. And it didn't matter like what it was doing to me. I mean, I grew up way too fast, way too soon. And then yeah, it just kept getting out of control for me. I tried getting sober and clean several times, or I was young and I could bounce back, and then I hit started building my career and did quite well. But at 18, I met what I like to call what I thought was the one, and person that said, "Hey, I love you," and that was probably the worst decade of my life, and that's what really spiraled my addiction. So I was let's put it this way. So at 18, I met what I thought the one, somebody a lot older, Italian, was very nice. And I was building my career and becoming very successful, doing my trade in makeup and traveling and all that kind of stuff. And I met someone that wasn't out to anybody else. It was kind of a secret that we were together. He was older, bigger, Sicilian Italian guy, and said he loved me. Said, you're the one. I want to be with you. And that was words that I was waiting to hear. Right. I had already felt I was passed around from older guys and kind of felt used. And I don't know. For a moment, I felt special, and I remember at 6 months feeling that love, and when the person was a lot bigger than me, feeling the fist and getting beat up and being told I'm so sorry. And I had to be one person in public and make these women look beautiful and be the happy-go-lucky fun Colby, and then yeah, then deal with a lot of abuse and a lot of stuff. And that went on for a decade.
And you're using the whole time, or?
It was here and there. The last year that we were together, I was pretty much beaten down, but it was living two different lives, being one person in public. And then I couldn't do it anymore. And so he started using, and that's because he was in the Teamsters. I took a year off from work, and I will tell you that I probably left our place maybe 2 or 3 times in that 1 year. I got down to, I think it was 108 pounds. I'm 179 now. And definitely endured things that no one should endure. I didn't have a close relationship with my dad, didn't talk to him. And I was so emaciated and just frail. And I remember I used to keep a extra car key, as a copy of my license, $100 bill in a Ziploc baggie, one set in the bush outside and one under the dishwasher, because he never liked me to leave. And I finally couldn't call anyone. And I remember getting on the computer when he was gone. I wrote an email to my dad, and I said, I hadn't talked to him in a long time. I said, if I don't get out of here, I'm going to die. I'd been using drugs for a year. I was like this thing that no one ever saw. And anyways, I sent that, and he said, can't you talk on the phone? I said, I can't. And he said, him and my stepmom wrote an email back and said, find a time to leave, get your car key, and I had a cat, and get in the car and leave and come to our place, our house, drive out. So I rested for 2 days, tried to gain some strength. And then with that, he was home, and he had been up for a couple of days, and I don't know what it was within me. I kept praying to God, get me out of this, and I remember he was in the living room, and I went for the door, and I had my car key, and he had said, where are you going? And don't ever do this. I don't know what within me, but I said, I'm leaving. I should have never said that. And, went to unlock the deadbolt. And once I said that, I just felt the hand grab me by the back of the shirt and just throw me. And I remember just being beaten on so severely. And the next thing I knew, he had tied me up. And my family didn't hear from me. So I just remember, I do remember this, being bound for 3 days without water, without all that. My parents finally got a hold of authorities. And I remember crying out a lot. No one heard me. I thought the neighbors would. And I remember him, I really wasn't all that conscious, but him turning around and saying, shut up, shut up, shut up, throwing a bunch of blankets on me. And, I'd been tied up like that for 3 days. And the next thing I know, I heard a loud noise. They broke through the door. And then all of a sudden I had the blankets pulled off me and guns drawn on me. Because they didn't know what was under the covers. And the weird part, I was so happy because I kept praying to God, get me out of this, because I thought I'd die there. And I remember being rushed to the hospital, and I was so beaten down. When they came to ask questions, I was like, I'm not going to press charges. They're like, oh, don't worry. He's going away for a long time. You were tied up. The Nicole Brown Simpson law had already went into place. And, I was in the hospital for a couple of weeks, and, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I was still afraid. I did a lot of therapy. I remember you couldn't cross my path, or I couldn't come close to you where I didn't say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And it took me a long time to find my voice, and I got sober. And put on weight, and I worked really hard to rebuild my life. I got in a thing called Pacific Group with Clancy, and Clancy, became my grand sponsor, and I got this ex military sponsor. His name was Oscar, and
That fits. Ex-military Oscar Tango Mike.
Oscar. And I was going to meetings 7 days a week. Pacific Group is very hardcore, AA, and I had several commitments. I remember Oscar, drove a Harley, had a cigar, and kind of looked at me and said, sit down, cream puff. And
Sorry, you can't
listen
get
to
more
the steps.
stereotypical than that, dude.
I know.
Ex-Marine named Oscar riding a Harley with a cigar in his mouth.
That's right.
Hey, nothing better than a good
Did he have a
cigar.
beard like
Oh, yeah.
Shane over there?
No, but he walked me through the steps in hardcore, and he said I had to get into work. I had to be at a meeting 7 days a week. I had to have commitments. I cleaned out ashtrays. I did whatever it took, and I built a solid foundation, of recovery, and I'm very grateful to him. I don't know if I can say this, but he said, I'm going to teach you how to be a man and say no and stand up for yourself and not be people's doormat. I will not allow you to do that. I will not allow you to be small around anyone. And I didn't think I was capable of that.
Why couldn't you say that?
Well, I was actually going to use a different term, but that he used.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, we don't want to use that
Yeah.
word.
No.
Yeah, I was going to say, because what you said was fine. I mean,
Well, I will say this. I will tell you the best part. When I went into a place called Liberty House, it was a men's sober living, and it's the guy who runs it. It's like Sending on Base, where it's like build you or break you down, build you back up. And I remember I walked in there, and it's not a house; it's enormous. And they're like, "You're going to be in this house with 30 other guys." And it's a 17-month program, and we are going to rebuild you. And I remember I walked in there and I saw them, and I was like, there's no way I can be in a house with 30 other straight men. Hell no. And I said, they don't get me, and I'm uniquely different, and all of that. And I remember I left, and I came back 2 days later, and I didn't give anyone a chance. And I remember the guy, Larry, said, you've been here You haven't opened up to anybody. You think you're different. You think that we won't accept you because you're gay and you haven't given us a chance. And why don't you tell your story? So I was sitting at all the tables with all the guys, and he made me open up about my journey. And I remember I couldn't look at anyone in the room. I thought they were all making fun of me, and I stared at the floor. And all of a sudden, for the very first time in many, many years, I started to cry because I had held that in. And it was an ugly cry, and I wasn't going to look up at anyone. And I'll never forget feeling the tap on my shoulder, and somebody handed me a tissue. And then when I looked up, it wasn't just one guy, it was all 30 guys standing in line with tears in their eyes, ready to give me a hug. And at that moment, like, I kind of let that wall down. And I learned to have a friendship with another man where I don't want anything from them. They didn't want anything from me. And we would talk man to man. And I built the most incredible relationships in that 17 months. I got to go paintballing. I got to, hang out with the guys and not be scared.
So you were in and out of recovery.
Mhm.
You told us off camera about 30 years worth. What made you decide? I mean, the last time that you went in, what was it that you said, enough is enough? I'm done with this life. I have to do something different. What made you decide that?
You mean this last time?
Yep.
Okay. Because life got real. Life got real. I'm not getting any younger, and there's not that many shopping days left till Christmas. Not only that, I was paralyzed.
That's one way to look at it.
So it's not that cute anymore. And what I hadn't told you guys is about 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's and then also a very rare disease called Kienbach's disease. I've had about 21 surgeries. I have a little over 20 pieces of metal. That means my bones are dying. So I have metal grafted in through here to keep my arms and legs and feet together. And then dealing with Parkinson's. Now I'm dealing with, what I already dealt with Guillain-Barré, Parkinson's, and Kienbach's. I know that my clock is ticking and what my mobility looks like. I see a neurologist, orthopedist, all that. And for the time that I have limited with mobility, I want to live. I can't play around. And I will tell you this, true story. I was in a treatment center and there was a guy facing all this stuff and he was going to go back to jail. And every morning and every evening, he would get up, take his Bible, and go down the hall and pray in the morning and the evening. And I remember saying to him, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm praying." I said, "You believe in God with all this stuff that's happened to you?" He said, "Oh, yes, Colby. It's the only thing that's gotten me through all the horrors in my life." And I said, "But you're going to jail. You still believe?" He said, "Absolutely. And I know that God will watch over me and protect me." Right. And he told me to find a power greater than myself. He goes, "I don't care what it is." And he said, "Just start praying, and turn it over." And he said, "I know you're going through a lot and you're in the itty bitty pity committee and don't know how you're going to get out." And I started praying. I didn't know what I was praying to be honest. Sometimes people would do horrible things and I'd pray for them. I was told to pray for them. I was also told to do the sick man's prayer when people would do me harm. And I pray 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 and I pray. And somehow, even with all the insurmountable obstacles and everything else, I stopped being mad at God for everything that had happened. And then I started to be grateful for all the experiences that I had gone through, because I don't know how to say this, but I'm able to connect and touch people that no one can, because I have been through so much and they could see it when they talk to me. Because I'm speaking from experience. I know what it feels like to be in such pain. I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to overcome. So, and my sponsor said to me, "You have more energy than the sun. You are a lot. But don't you think God made you a lot?" to deal with a lot. And I went, you're right. I do wake up at 4:15 every morning, like it's my internal clock, and I go all day. I'm 49 years old, and I'm the poster child for the American Disabilities Association, and I can go faster and longer than people that are able-bodied that are 20 years younger than me. And that's a gift, right? That's a gift. I don't know where the energy comes from. I don't know. I started leaning into gratitude, and it definitely changed my attitude. And 90% of the time, I'm a pretty hyper positive guy. So somehow along the line with all my prayers, I turned trauma into strength.
I got a kind of question, a little off the kind of a little off our script here, but you talk about God, higher power, or something greater than. How do you see your higher power, and has it changed over the years?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I don't know how to answer that. First it was just praying into, dead air, or I didn't know what I was praying for, or who I was praying to. Do I believe in God? Absolutely. Did I believe in God in the past? No, because I couldn't understand why I went through what I went through, and if that was true, why did I go through so many things? What did I do? Right? But have you ever been around someone where their faith is so strong and you can't understand it,
Yeah.
but you see it within them? I mean, on the back of the dollar bill, it says, "In God we trust." It's not like God has to come down, but people just have a faith, and I started thinking, who am I to doubt that? And there's a lot of incredible things that have happened in my life. There's got to be a God, you know? There's got to be, I mean, I shouldn't be walking. I shouldn't be talking. I shouldn't be doing all those things. So I don't know. I do feel a connection. I still struggle with like understanding when I, meet with Pastor Allen or whatever. But I see goodness and I see connection. I know that when I do esteemable acts and I'm of service and all of that, and that I pray, my life is better. And I treat people the way I want to be treated. And I don't know, something along the way told me, try to be the person for others that you wanted for yourself when you were hurting. Maybe that's my purpose.
And what a good purpose, too. I wanted to ask him whenever he was talking about praying to God to get him out of the situation. And you see the police came, kicked down the door, and got him out of that situation. That's a good thing about God, is God will rescue us.
I don't know if I need to say this, but I think I do. It's been a long time since I've dated or been like in any kind of relationship, because somebody told me, actually it was my sponsor, have a relationship with yourself and learn to love yourself first. And so I've been dated in 8 years, and maybe one day I will. But for the very first time in my life, because you got to think I didn't have it in childhood or whatever, I have a relationship with myself, and I am so happy with my dog and my friends and doing all that one day maybe I might find someone to compliment me, but I don't need anyone to complete me, and that's what I was searching for my whole life.
So no Jerry Maguire. No Jerry Maguire moment.
Well
You
played.
complete me.
No, not at all.
Right on.
And I like to tell people, quit looking for the relationship. Get right with you. Be okay with being alone. Love who you are, and it'll just happen.
Correct.
So there's people in our lives that we have to tell that to a lot. It's strange, but
Why are you staring at me?
they just don't catch
Why are
it.
you staring at me?
They just don't catch it. So
We just had a friend at the house. That's why.
when is your sobriety date?
So I did have my sobriety date, I'm so sorry, is February 4th, 2023. So I'm coming up on 9 months.
Good deal. Congrats.
Thank you. I'm going to tell you this. I had a good amount of sobriety time. and not dating, but I had thought to myself, it had been a long time since I had a physical connection. I was like, what are you, is it ever going to happen? Like, how long, what are you going to do? Go a decade? And I did not realize that intimacy and drugs, or intimacy is a trigger from past trauma. And I went to connect with someone, and it immediately triggered me to want to use to be able to get through it. I wouldn't say that I'm ashamed of who I am, but I can't get through the act without it. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
It 100% does.
Yes.
So until I work through that, my sponsor used to say, you have no gay friends. I said, no. He said, you have one. And he said, why are you in fear? I said, because I'm in fear of. And he said, well, are you ashamed of yourself? I said, I'm not mad at myself, but I don't trust. I can talk to Derek and be around him and feel totally safe and comfortable, but I also know Derek doesn't want anything from me. I don't want anything from him. When it comes to somebody else that's gay, it causes a fear and uncomfortableness, and it makes me triggers a desire to use. I'm getting better, but it's so weird how it worked out that way.
So since February, you have a sponsor now?
Yes. Well, I have a sponsor, but now I moved out here. And so we talk every day, but it's just like that sponsor I had, Oscar, right? When I moved from California to Missouri, he had told me, now that you're there, you need to find a sponsor there. I don't want to do a long distance sponsorship. I need someone to see you. So I'll call my sponsor all the time, but it's not the same as the instant access that I'd have, because that's the whole thing. I love sponsorship, but I also enjoy getting together face to face. It's very hard to try to connect, especially when you work in treatment and somebody else is really busy, to get those calls and quality time.
It is, but you have access to a lot of meetings in this area.
Oh, yeah. I go to probably 5 outside meetings on top of doing all the stuff that I do at the aviary.
So are you looking for a sponsor, or are you just do you have blinders on and you're like, nope, I don't want one here?
No, not at all. Well, yes, I am. I'm kind of looking for that no nonsense, tell it like it is, direct what I respond to. I can't handle a fluffy sponsor because it won't work for me.
A fluffy sponsor.
Hey, come on now. There's people out there looking for fluffy sponsors, and if
Yeah.
you don't, when they come to you, ask you to be a sponsor, and you ask them to do their homework,
Yeah.
and they ain't doing it.
Yeah.
Then they were like, "Oh, I'm going somewhere else." Well, hopefully, you find the fluffy you're looking for, because I'm not fluffy.
Well,
Not that kind
I'm
of fluffy,
fat,
I was gonna
but
say not that kind of fluffy.
but I'm not a
There you go.
soft person. Yes,
Yes.
that is true.
So it's funny, when I was talking to you on the phone, I was talking to Christina, and I just met you today. I think I've talked to you a couple times with you in the background on the phone. And you were boom, boom, boom. And I remember I was talking to Jeremy, and I said, what is he like? And I go, because here's the read that I got from him. It's pretty direct and everything else. And Jeremy goes, yeah, you got that right. So,
That nailed it.
nailed it.
Nailed it. Right.
There's usually a pretty long word that people call me.
That's okay.
A jerk is one easy way to put it that we could say on the broadcast. That's for sure. Look, it's life or death.
Right.
What we deal with is life or death, and to me, if we go out, we use. There's a good chance that we're not coming back. We always have another relapse, but we might not have another recovery in us.
Right.
And I take it that way. I mean, I love homework. I love working steps. I love those kind of things. And then it's pretty easy to find out if people are serious or going to be successful pretty early on when you're hardcore about it. And it's what worked for me, and it's not for everybody, but those that embrace it, I think it works well for.
Mm-hmm.
And it has.
Yeah,
And it has.
Right.
it's
Yeah.
definitely been proven to work.
Yes. But
I heard
fun.
you say something.
Well, no, it's just, well, like you said, being that hardcore sponsor, and you get all these people out there. When you give that out, you know who's gonna work it, who's gonna work their program and do it by bringing that kind of attitude towards them and stuff. So I
Right.
get it.
So tell us about your support system. What does that look like? And I mean all the way from psychiatrists, therapists, sponsors, accountability partners. What does your recovery look like right now?
So I have 4 men in my life that I talk to on the phone. I call them the four horsemen. They're individuals that have good sobriety. They walk the walk. They don't just talk the talk. If I ever call them and run anything by them, they're not going to sugarcoat anything. They're going to give me their input, and I'm not getting offended because I value who they are. I've got my sponsor. I now have a new therapist out here that I talk to. And then I've been going to the 212 club a lot and doing that. Because somebody told me a long time ago, make sure, I've never worked in treatment. I've been a broker and doing all that kind of stuff. And they said, you work in treatment, you're in recovery. Make sure that you know the difference. So even though I'm at the aviary and I'm involved in all this stuff, or I take guys or go with guys to a meeting from the brick house and go there, that's separate. I like having my own individual meetings. And then when I get the opportunity, talking with Jeremy in the morning, I love those talks, doing that. And then, like I said, the four horsemen and talking to my sponsor. So, and I write and journal every day.
Oh boy, I bet you make some people happy.
Why?
Does your therapist like you to journal?
All my previous therapists love me to journal.
Yeah. It's the greatest tool ever. I mean,
Yeah.
I love it. Biggest surprise in recovery.
That I'm so much stronger than I ever thought I was.
That would be a good one. Biggest challenge over your last 9 months.
Biggest challenge, my previous sponsor told me a long time ago, no is a complete sentence. And I do, because of the people-pleasing codependency that come from, years of that. Learning to say no and stay true and steadfast to boundaries. I remember him telling me, if you say no and somebody says, but why? And you start to reply, you've already given over your power and let that boundary be crossed. And I'm like, how do you do that? Sometimes I'm really strong. I remember there was a moment, we have this clinical director, Stacy, and when I first started the position over at the aviary, Jeremy actually said, guess what, Colby? You're going to be working in treatment, and there's people that aren't going to like you, and you're going to have to deal with that. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I know that's going to be foreign to you, but he said, you're going to have to set boundaries. And I was so struggling, trying to do everything and do all that. And I remember I was sitting with Jeremy on the speakerphone, Stacy in front of me, and a client. And there was at some point the old Colby kicked in, and I stood up and I gave that person feedback, and I got real and I got honest, and I didn't have any fear. And I remember afterwards, Stacy and I got in the car, and she said, that person that I saw that sat up straight and spoke with conviction, and you didn't have any fear, and you said it exactly how you would say it. You weren't worried about offending or liking, and you spoke the truth. That was magic. Hold on to that. And sometimes I doubt that. So maybe it's because it's being out here. Maybe it's because going into a new job. But yeah, that's been, does that make sense?
It makes plenty of sense. I mean, especially with what you've been through in your life, it makes really good sense. There's people that haven't been through that much trauma and still can't stand up. So I get it. It could be just so difficult. Message of hope to the families that have somebody struggling.
honestly, pray for them. Pray for them, but also remember that you can't work harder for their recovery than they do. And sometimes you have to let people fall. Hopefully, they don't pass away. But sometimes hitting that bottom and digging their way out, there's so much value in that, because anything I've ever had in my life that I value, I had to work so hard for. Anything that's been handed to me, I easily give it away and I don't respect it or appreciate it the way I had to with walking again, functioning, overcoming some of the challenges. Um, those I value and appreciate. And when I had to work for my own recovery this last time and drag myself up from the depths of nothingness, boy, do I appreciate it and respect it. And sometimes you have to step back. And somebody told me a long time ago, it was Clancy actually that said this. If you do everything for someone, you're robbing them of the opportunity to learn and grow.
Without a doubt. Now, this is 2 in a row that have said, let them hit their bottom, right?
Right.
Yep.
He said the rock bottom last week. Casey did. You just said, and I always said, let them fall and bounce twice. And then you could help them up. Message of hope to the addict themselves. What do you got?
Okay, say that one more time. I was so focused on what you were saying.
The message of hope to that one that's still struggling.
Message of hope. Hold on, and find that strength within yourself, and you're going to surprise yourself every single day. But I know this sounds corny, but don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle happens, because when it does, it's incredible.
I really thought he was going to say, hold on, pain ends.
Yeah, no.
That's what I was waiting for. Steve, anything in closing, my brother?
Man, I just got to say it's just a wonderful story, and I caught myself over here just listening and going, okay, I can ask this, but you've answered everything as I'm thinking about it almost. I really appreciate having you here.
Thank you thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for having me.
Derek.
Coby, man, welcome to the podcast. I'm glad you showed up, man. Good that you got to share your story and that. And I know there's somebody out there that's going to be listening to this podcast that your story is definitely going to impact, and they're going to call, they're going to want the help that, the strength. They're going to want the strength that they've seen you display with us here today. And I really appreciate you for that. I also understand that you've been helping us out as a podcast, and we appreciate your work, man. And we're glad you're here, brother.
Yeah, I think
Welcome.
Colby knows too many people.
I'm saying we should be going live in LA by now.
So here's the thing. You said message of hope, right?
Yep.
So many years back, my neurologist had let me know, with everything I have going on, eventually I'll get dementia, this, that, whatever. I was encouraged to journal, photograph, and write about my journey. The way I do that, because my hands don't work, is, I do it through Facebook. And I didn't do it for anybody else. I did it for me, and that was a platform, and I really didn't care anything about Facebook. But I uploaded my photos, and I write every day, right? And share my journey, good, bad, or indifferent. And somewhere along the line, 5-6 years ago, I went from having 230 people, maybe tops, on my page, and then all of a sudden, all these people started sharing stuff that I wrote, or videos, or, breakdowns, breakthroughs, triumphs, whatever. And then all of a sudden people started contacting me and saying, wow, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being so real, so raw, so honest. And it inspired people. And I had no idea that's something I was using as a memory tool, as a journaling tool, would uplift and inspire. So all those people came in, and then I'm able to give back and use that platform to help you guys with your stuff and other things. And I will tell you this. There are days where my mind lies to me, and I'll get in the itty bitty pity committee. And all I have to do when my mind says you're alone, you're not loved, or you can't do this, all I have to do is go back to a year from now on that specific date or a month ago and read what I wrote and see the pictures of those activities and go, no, you're not. You're not alone. Look at what you overcame. And it's kind of like this journal, this log of my life. And sometimes just reading that or seeing that inspires me to move forward. But most importantly, I'm able to go back year by year and see how far I've come whenever I think I haven't accomplished that much.
It's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
I just don't spend that much time on Facebook, but it is a
That's
great
okay.
way to do it. I mean, it really is a tool. So hope is the belief that one has both the ability and the opportunity to engage in the recovery process.
Yes.
What's a process?
Oh, a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end.
That's our favorite word on this podcast.
I see that. I even saw how he did the eye movement. That was just spectacular.
It's my sponsor made me write it down, and it was everywhere in my house.
Was it?
Everywhere, my work, my house, you name it. It was everywhere I would look in a day. There was that word. It's the only word I know the true definition of, word for word.
Do you still have the same sponsor?
No, I wish, but yeah, I won't say. Had to leave that relationship. It was just wise to do.
Okay.
But I have a great sponsor. I love working steps. I got a few sponsees that I like working steps with.
Some you probably don't.
Well, I always like working steps that they'll just hurry up and get on their steps and quit, procrastinating. It makes it fun.
When they got guests over at the house every other weekend, it's kind of hard to work the steps, right?
Yeah. So, look, Coby, thank you for everything. I am glad that I had Christina reach out when I did and ask about that, and you were able to say, yeah, and what about this? And that made it fun. Because I never met you. I've heard plenty about you. I think God has you right where you need to be. The position you took that opened up for you to move into, I think is the perfect position for somebody like you.
Thank you.
I call it the wedding planner.
I love it. When you said that, I was like, what is he talking about?
But I mean, a coordinator, if you look at it, I mean, you coordinate events, you coordinate all these things, and who better? Who better to come in and drive social media and connect all these people and keep them connected than you?
Thank you. I do enjoy doing it, but you know what I love the most? I'm going to be honest.
What's that?
My favorite thing, and I remember I told them this is a deal breaker when taking the position, is I'd be living at the aviary and at the brick house. Why? Because I know the beauty that comes from a brotherhood and a group of men coming together and supporting each other and coming together as a unit, and the beauty. So seeing that grow and then being on property and being able to interact with the clients 5 days a week and getting to know people like Derek on a more personal level and kind of being connected, it's like synergy. And it doesn't make it feel like a job. It actually, I kind of wake up with purpose, and I really thrive on being able to connect. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Normally I would say no, it don't. I told you that on the phone. I told you how I am.
Okay.
But I didn't do it to you. So, Coby, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being so vulnerable.
Thank you.
God gifted you well, and God will continue to use you, brother.
That's right.
Thank
To the rest of you, man, thank you for joining. God bless you guys. Make sure you have a good week. I know what you're about to say. Go ahead, D.
What was I going to say?
Like, share, subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe. We're on every podcast platform, and with our special guest pushing the name out there. Look us up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If Kobe's story touched you, it reached out to you in any kind of way, leave the message. We want to hear from you. We want to talk with you as well.
And
Thank you.
you can find Coby obviously on Facebook at what is it? Just your name?
Colby Sean Wassman on Facebook.
You can't send him a friend request because he's just too important.
Stop.
That's what happened. He blew up, got too big, so you can't do it.
Email us.
info@awakensober.org. Hey, if you or a loved one is needing help, September is Mental Health Awareness Month, or not Mental Health Awareness Month, Suicide Prevention Month and Recovery Month. But if you need resources, you can look us up at reclaiminghope-mo.org. You can fill out a form. We'll have somebody get a hold of you right away, set up some services for you. But we would love to walk a journey. We don't want you to do it alone.
Right.
So God bless. We love y'all. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
See you soon.
Have a good night.